We are live. Welcome back. Welcome if you are new. Um, Talking about global heating and some other things. And just by way of introducing the topic, I keep hearing pundits and other people talking about, saving the planet from global heating or global climate change generally, which is climate change is not really a thing, but global heating certainly is. Global heating is physics. And yeah, maybe it'll change your climate, but changing your climate is probably the least of your worries. Global heating, that's what it's all about. But they'll say saving the planet from global climate change. Okay, that sounds like a good idea. Now, I like me some narrative warfare. I like me some definitions. I like when people use words and sentences correctly with full meaning, right? I like that. And if you've been on this channel much, you'll know that I kind of go off on that once in a while. What people say using words and what those words tell us about what they are thinking. So here's a good one. As people actually get on board with global climate change, whatever, being a thing, maybe, um, they start saying things like that sound like a really good idea, like we must save the planet, save the planet. Now, what is it you're saving in that case? Because words have meaning to me, and maybe you'll say I'm being an asshole. We all know what we mean when we say save the planet. You don't have to worry, Cougar. We all know what we mean when we say that. No, I don't think I don't think anybody who says that knows what they mean by that. They're thinking something, and they think that's what they're saying. Well, when people hear those words, that's not necessarily what the speaker meant for them to hear. They hear saving the planet, and maybe you're thinking something else, but saving the planet actually doesn't transmit from your mind to their mind what you meant to say about what you were thinking, because saving the planet is not actually a thing. You don't save planets because planets don't go anywhere. Planets are rocks. And this planet has oceans and an atmosphere and some other things going on. But you might as well say saving Venus or saving Mars, because those are also planets. But you would never want to save Venus as a planet. Even if Venus was in danger as a planet, you wouldn't care because you don't live there. And even if Mars was somehow in danger of an asteroid strike or a planet buster meteorite or something like that, it'd be interesting. Maybe you'd want to watch it on a telescope, but you wouldn't be going on and on about saving Mars. It would just be a curious thing. And even if a meteorite was coming to hit Earth, and we knew exactly where it was, and this was actually in real life, IRL, don't look up, and the meteorite is coming, or a bunch of them, or a swarm of comets, or something like that, and we're all, oh no, we have to save the planet. It's not really what you mean. We must save the planet from the meteor. That's not really what you mean. You say that, but you don't mean that. What you would like to save from the meteor is yourself and your family and your community and your friends and whatever. Maybe if you're a very generous person, you might want to save all human life on Earth from the meteorite. But you would say we must save the planet. But what you're really meaning is the human life of the planet. And if you're super, super, super enlightened and you understand the complexity of planetary life that humans depend on, like all the plants and all the animals and all the life in the waters and all the life in the sea and the orchards and the fields and the everything and the topsoil and the permafrost and all of it, right? Then you'd realize you're wrapped up in all this. And so maybe if you're super enlightened, you wouldn't just say, well, let's not just focus on saving all the human life. Why don't we talk about and desire to save all the human life? That seems smart. I mean, all the life, that seems smart. So depending on how enlightened you are, you would go from just saving yourself as a first reaction, or saving your immediate family as a first reaction, to wanting to save all peoples as a second reaction, to wanting to save all life on Earth as a third reaction. And probably you would stop there, because the rocks don't matter. If we weren't here, then this planet would be no better, no different, nor better off than Mars, and no more worth saving than Venus. And if a big planet buster meteorite was heading for Venus, we'd be like, oh, hey, let's get that on, Snapchat or something, right? We'd all be all excited about what's going to happen on Venus. How can we see this? Do I have a big enough telescope? How am I going to watch? You'd be all excited because you wouldn't care about Venus as a planet. And probably, you probably haven't thought about it, but basically at some subconscious level, Venus has no life on it. So you wouldn't even worry from the safety of Earth about saving Venusian life because there isn't any. You wouldn't care. You just wouldn't care that there's a huge planet buster about to collide with Venus. It would be a spectacle. It'd be fun to watch. That's it. That's your only fun thought would be, can I buy the last telescope at Costco so I can watch this thing? And the same really applies to this planet. And so when people come out, they're talking about global climate change and global heating and fossil fuels and CO2 in the atmosphere and the greenhouse effect. Save the planet. We got to stop this to save the planet. We have to do it. And you're thinking, Cougar, stop. Well, we know what they mean. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. And if you did, you'd be a lot more terrified of what's about to happen. And when someone who knows better, and I see it all the time on YouTube videos, and I read it all the time in articles, I hear it on podcasts all the time. It's just like, it has to be this way. Everyone has to finish the same way. At the end of their speech, at the end of their spiel, at the end of their presentation, they say, and we really owe it to ourselves and future generations to save the planet from climate change. And when you hear that, it's like, that is like, oh yeah, the planet. I love the planet. It doesn't frighten you, does it? And it's not intended to frighten you. They don't want to frighten you. They don't want to. They have to say what they have to say for whatever internal psychological reasons they are now saying this, right? They know the truth and they want to speak the truth because that's, their fiduciary responsibility to the rest of humanity is, I have seen the truth and I will speak the truth. And then they walk away. But at the end they say, and what we really need to save is the planet from climate change. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Whereas if they were to say, and we must save as many human lives as possible, you'd back up a little bit, save as many human lives as possible. Really? Is that human lives? That's what's at stake here. That's what's on board. We're dealing with that, human lives. So who's going to be saved? Is it, the rich people? Is it the white people? Is it the Christians? Is it me? Am I in any of those lists of the humans that you're going to save? Because if we're saving the humans, I'm a human. And so I'd like to know where in the spectrum of savable people or desirable people or whatever criteria you're going to use, right? Because there's only so many lifeboats on the Titanic, right? So if we're going to save the people, not the planet, because the planet doesn't need a lifeboat. We're just saving the planet. But if we're saving the people, then that means doing something for the people, right? Moving them to higher ground, moving them further inland, moving them further north where it's cooler. If you're going to save people, or really any living thing, then you got a big project on your hands. It's not a spectacle saving the planet. It's something you have to do now, saving the people. And so they won't say that. And I'm pretty sure there are people who probably come up with a presentation, and at the end they say, and we must try to save as many humans as possible from global heating and climate change. And they're lawyers, attorneys, they're bosses, their peers who are trying to save this person's career. They say, no, you can't say that. You can't say you're trying to save as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. You can't say that we have to get as many people off of dependence on fossil fuels as quickly as we can, or they're going to die when the fossil fuels are taken away, as they must be. And you can't say that because that just panics people. People just go into a panic. And then what are they doing when they're panicking? They're depressed. They're suicidal. They're on their popping pills, or they're rushing outside with their AR-15, shooting bullets in the air. I got to save myself from climate change, because people are chimps. They just don't understand. They just react in this negative way to every threat. Every threat is a threat. Every threat is something to be stomped on and stabbed and shot and thrown over the cliff into the river. Okay, that's what you do with threats like climate change. But of course, you can't throw climate change off the bridge into the river. What can you do? And then becomes the question. If you're talking about, well, we have to save the planet from climate change, no one even knows even where to start. They're like, okay, yeah, all right, it's like a good idea. Saving the planet. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The first Earth Day. I was there. I was there at the first Earth Day. I petted the jaguars. And so we're still saving the earth, right? It's been 50 years and we're still saving the earth. And have we done it? No, but we still know what that means. It means you go to Earth Day. It means you recycle your plastics. It means, all these things, just, you compost and you do all these things. But you buy organic and you drive one less drive a week or something like that, right? You work from home. There's all these ways you can save the planet. But if you talk about saving humanity, people are going to sit up and they're going to say, wait, what part of humanity? How? What do we have to do? Because now you're talking about them. So you don't do that. And if you got a podcast or you've got a YouTube video or you're trying to say something in a documentary, then at the end you have to say, oh, and by the way, what we're trying to do here is save the planet from global heating and climate change. That's what you say. When you say global heating, right? Because that actually is also triggering. You have to say we have to save the planet from climate change because climate change is whatever the fuck that is. No one even knows what that is. You don't even know what that is. Really, you don't. I can't give you a definition. I mean, I'm sure I could look something up. There's probably Google AI would tell me a long paragraph about what, climate change is. But it's this long paragraph. It's going to be full of all this amorphous, weenie weasel language about this and that. It's not specific because it can't be, because the climate over here is different than the climate over there. And the impacts from global heating over this place will be different than the ones over here and over there. And actually they come in different sequences. And sometimes you're having a drought, sometimes you're having a flood, but it's all global heating because that's what heating does. And I can explain that, but I'm not going to. And so, your climate will change and it'll change back and forth because that's what climate change does. Because climate change isn't an end thing. It's a process. And it goes through lots and lots of changes. And sometimes it ends up back where it started. And then it goes through more changes after that. And sometimes it never comes back to where it started. And sometimes it ends up in some place where you would never have predicted. Even some collection of places, heating, desiccating heat for 3 weeks, and then torrential rains for three weeks after that. And then, disease outbreaks for 3 weeks after that. And then back to, torrential heat, it's just beating down. And it's like, well, what's my climate now? Where are we at? We're having climate change. I get that. But where is my climate now? My climate's all over the place. And so is that what climate change is? Your climate just goes all over the place? I don't know. Maybe, probably. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything to the average Joe. It doesn't even mean anything to climate scientists. Climate change is not your enemy. You might even, if you get really lucky, you might even end up with a better climate. So climate change is really not a thing for you at all. You won the lottery. But for most of us, climate change is just going to be all over the map, the climate map, the weather map, right? It's going to be one thing and then another. We're actually seeing this all over the planet right now, including here in the good old US of A. Record heat followed by record rainfall, followed by record hail, followed by record tornadoes, then back to record heat. It's just been a shit show. And the people who are suffering through this are like, well, when is this going to end? And my answer to you is, it don't. Oh, in fact, what it does do with regularity is it gets worse. How can it get worse? More of the same, bigger tornadoes, more of them, bigger hailstones, more of them. The floods are deeper and there's more floods of that kind. It just gets worse. And you can imagine it's going to end somewhere, but no, it doesn't have to end. It ends when you're dead. And then your problems are over. It ends for you because you're dead. So saving the planet from climate change is just not a thing. And yet everybody says that. And as we get further and further into all these harms that are piling up, and as the insurance companies start to bail out on more and more communities and cities and entire countries, and as entire countries become less and less habitable, and as people leave those countries and go in greater and greater numbers to more and more countries looking for refuge, okay, as all of this stuff just starts to roll out and spill out like garbage spilling out of a burning dumpster, right? And it piles up and you're surrounded by smoke and ash and people running and screaming and it sounds apocalyptic. And on some, infinitesimal, constantly worsening thing, it is. And at some point, for you personally, it'll be apocalyptic. The inside of your house will be full of water all the way to the ceiling, and it'll be that way 3 times in the same summer, or twice in the same winter. And then the hail will come, and the hail will be the size of grapefruits, because that's what they're getting up to, that size now. I think they entered a new size, which most people wouldn't even understand, which is DVD size. Go find a DVD, look it up in Google, look up what a DVD is. And they are now having hailstones the size of DVDs. That's a new thing. So when those things are crashing through your roof and bringing the insulation down and bashing you in the head and killing you, you're going to know something. You're going to have an experience. And the reality is, the hailstones and the flooding and the fires and all this other stuff, it doesn't really endanger the planet, does it? It doesn't really. I mean, the rocks, the rivers themselves, the peaks of the mountains, are they in any danger? No, they're not. And after all life has been stripped from the surface of this planet, this rock will remain. It didn't go anywhere. It suffered no harm that anyone would be able to identify. But what was harmed by global heating? What was harmed by fossil fuel emissions from our burning of fossil fuels? We were, all of us, and all of our brethren that share this planet with us, and everything spiraling out into the seas and into the air and into the rainforests and down into the canyons, and everything that's like us and that breathes and that breeds and that reproduces and has pollen and seeds and flowers and leaves and trunks, and that walks on 2 legs and 4 legs or 8 legs or whatever it does. Everything you can name, and millions of things that you couldn't name and wouldn't even recognize. You probably wouldn't recognize as alive. There are things growing on rocks that you wouldn't even know are alive. And all that's going to die. All that's going to die. We were watching last night a really interesting, actually, it was very well produced YouTube video on uh, mass extinctions on Earth. And there was one that was called The Great Dying, and you could look this up. It's called The Great Dying. They called it that. I think it's like the third of the 5 mass extinctions. We're currently in the 6th, by the way. So the Great Dying, nearly everything on Earth died. And it's really complicated how that happened. But as I was mentioning to my wife, oh yeah, all those things could happen to us now because of what we're doing. We're heating the planet. It's going to kill the oceans. When the oceans die, they're going to emit noxious gases like methane and hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide is a neurotoxin. It affects organisms with complicated nervous systems, and you won't be able to be anywhere within 200 miles of a coastline. Not because of the sea level rise, but because of the masses of gases sweeping inland from the dying seas, carried on the regular winds, and it's just going to be just like this. It's like a science fiction movie, right? Just this killer fog. It's like chemical warfare in the First World War. Just this fog that would just spread over the landscape, and it would do it when you least expect it. And maybe you're wearing a respirator all the time. Maybe you have an oxygen supply plugged in. Maybe you can endure the coming and goings of these noxious air masses containing huge quantities of hydrogen sulfide from the dying sea, hydrogen sulfide and methane and nitrous oxides, and it's something you can't breathe. You just can't. And even the oxygen will be depleted in these clouds, because the methane, which is a combustible gas, will react with some of that methane coming out of the oceans, which are dying, will react with the oxygen in the air and create water and carbon dioxide, plus probably other noxious things. But it consumes the oxygen. The methane can consume the oxygen just through simple cold combustion. And so the oxygen levels in these clouds coming in off the oceans might be 10% oxygen. Currently, we got like 21%. And people are worried that it might drop because we're destroying the oceans, and the oceans are the source of most of our oxygen, algae and things like that living in the sea. And these seas are huge, and they're really deep, and there's a lot of algae in the seas, and they generate a lot of our oxygen that it enters the atmosphere. So So we may already be running out of oxygen supply from the oceans because the oceans are dying. So la di da. And then that that beneficial gas, oxygen, becomes replaced with the products of decay, hydrogen sulfide, methane, all that other stuff, and it depletes the oxygen even further. Plus, hydrogen sulfide will just straight up kill you. Happens all the time. Yes, it does. It happens all the time on this planet. Hydrogen sulfide, people die from it. People also die from carbon dioxide plumes that come out of volcanoes and other such things. Uh, look it up. It happens. There's a volcanic lake in Africa. I can't remember what it's called, but it would be really easy to look it up. That periodically off gases all of its stored carbon dioxide, which comes from the volcano part of the lake, and it's been known to kill entire villages. Completely invisible, odorless. You have no idea what's going on. You just drop dead. And if you live next to the coast of a dying ocean, you could just find yourself dropping dead. You wouldn't even know why. You would just not wake up. And neither would your dog, your cat, your horse, your cattle, your livestock, your chickens, everything. All your domestic animals. They just wouldn't wake up. Just killed them. And that's your real problem. You're not saving the planet. The planet doesn't care about clouds of hydrogen sulfide gas coming from the dying oceans. The planet doesn't care. It's done that in the past. What you're trying to save and what you're trying to address when you talk like this is you're trying to save life. And let's start, why not? I'll admit it, I'm a chauvinist. Let's start with human life. Let's value human life above all other forms of life. And let's talk about that first. Because that's actually the scary thing. Because the next thing people will do is say, well, we have to save the polar bears. We have to save, and they'll talk about other forms, the ferns and the liverworts. They'll talk about other forms of life, coral reefs, right? That no one cares about. Coral reefs. Yeah. Well, I've got a picture of a coral reef in my office. I can look at that picture anytime I want to and see a coral reef. There it goes. Yep. And David Attenborough did a documentary once on coral reefs, and I can just bring that up on YouTube anytime I want. Look at the beautiful coral reefs and all the fish. You can do that. So you may not care that the coral reefs are dying, but that's because we're not talking about the thing that we probably do care about, which is human life. And trust me, once the oceans are dead, and it starts with the death of the coral reefs and the death of the great cetaceans and the death of the penguins and the death of the algae and the death of the zooplankton. It starts with all these little things that no one cares about. And then it ends up the ocean is dead. And you go out there to fish and there's no fish. And what happens when you go out there to fish is you die, because what's coming out of the ocean isn't fish in your nets. It's hydrogen sulfide gas from all the death and decay. And pretty soon you can't live on the shoreline. And I could easily predict that our problems with shorelines in the future won't be sea level rise. That will happen too. And eventually our shorelines and our shore cities and facilities like ports of call and all this kind of stuff, coastal infrastructure, it'll all be underwater. It'll all be under 280 feet of water. That's true. That will totally happen. Guaranteed, pretty much guaranteed. But before all that happens, the life, at least the animal life, nervous systems, right? The animal life in these shore areas will all be dead because the oceans died. And the noxious clouds of toxins that came off of this death soup of ocean life, this death soup, this rotting, festering cauldron of death, the methane and the H2S that come off of that kill people who live too close to the water. And eventually the water itself, not the rising sea levels, that's a problem, but that's a wholly different kind of problem. But the water itself, the water that you have off your shore right now, if you live on the West Coast or the East Coast, the water as it stands right now at that level, at that height, could kill you right there if the oceans died. So we're not here to save the planet. And people are going to say that we're going to save the planet. We're going to save the planet. Our job now is to save the planet. And we must save the planet. It's our generation that must save the planet. We can't wait for future generations to save the planet because we have this responsibility right now. Saving the planet is our responsibility. And, my eyes just glaze over. It's like, dude, you can't save the planet. It's not even in danger. Maybe you want to save the life of this planet. I think, and if that's what you mean, go ahead and say it. because I'm real sensitive to narrative warfare these days. If you want to save the life of this planet, then say, we need to save the life of this planet. And if what you're really talking about, and what you're really trying to imply, you should just say it. Just come out and say it. I know. Be brave, Sparky. You know, keep a stiff upper lip, square your shoulders, stand up, be a man, be a woman, be a whatever you are, and just say it. You know, we need to save human life from climate change and global heating. Just say it. And people will criticize you. People will say, man, that was scary. Why'd you have to say that? You don't have to say save human life. That implies that there's a real risk. But that's why I said it. Because there is. There's many of them. There's lots of them. There's there's existential X risk. There's X risk out there that we haven't even thought of. And we won't know about them until they hit us and they kill a bunch of people. And a bunch of people are dead. And then the scientists and the forensic pathologists, they show up and they say, what the hell happened here? And they're going to be saying on the news, we don't know what happened, but something terrible happened to this coastal community. And I'm going to say, well, I know what the hell happened. You want to ask me? I can tell you what happened. I can tell you exactly what happened. I don't even have to go there and look. I don't even need a forensic pathologist. I don't need a biologist. I am a biologist. I can tell you exactly what happened. Everything died. Everything in water died. And then there was enough hydrogen sulfide and methane that it came ashore and it suffocated the people to death. They died. They died in their sleep. Everybody died. The cats died. The rats died. Everybody died. And it came from the sea. And you killed the sea. And the sea returned the favor. But that's what your challenge is. Not saving the planet. Saving your sorry ass. That's your challenge. And you should just say that. I'm saying that right here. I'm saying that over and over and over again. I'm saying it. You need to save your sorry ass. Can you do that? No. But that's what you need to do. Well, if I can't do that, then why are you talking about it? Because the only thing you can do, the only thing that we can do collectively, the only thing the governments can do because we want it done is to stop burning fossil fuels with immediate effect. Immediately. You know, that causes a cascade, a whole ripple, just an outward expanding ripple of effects. And I am absolutely aware of that. And I can tell you that if you stop burning fossil fuels today with immediate effect, then within 100 days, you will lose probably 90% of humanity. In 100 days, maybe a year, 90% of humanity. And then you'll go on to lose another 90% after that, until you basically have a 99% die-off of humanity over a period of a couple of years, because we're not going to be able to figure it out. So maybe 1% of the people survive turning off fossil fuels, but that's what we have to do. Because I can promise you this, if you don't stop burning fossil fuels, then one of these days, when the oceans die and the hydrogen sulfide comes ashore in huge, stinking, festering fogs, you're going to understand what the risk was. People are going to die by the billions all at once, pretty much everywhere. It'll all happen at once. The oceans will die, and there'll be some mysterious deaths of these coastal communities, and we'll wonder what's going on. And then one day, all the coastlines become uninhabitable. Inland, 200 miles or more. And those people, they leave. They just get in the car, they get in the Dodge, and they just drive on the nearest freeway 200 miles before they stop. And then they're probably out of gas. That's why they stopped. And there probably is no gas because everyone's doing the same thing at the same time because they just figured it all out. They all figured it out at the same time. And so they all did the same thing at the same time. They all got in the Dodge. They threw in the car. They threw in the kids. They threw in the dog. Okay. And they got in the Dodge and they stopped at the first service station. Everyone filled up their car at the first service station. That service station goes offline within 4 hours. And then they all get on the nearest freeway, and that freeway is packed. And everybody goes bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper, guns firing, people running out of gas, cars catching on fire, cars pushed into the ditches, bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper for 200 miles. And then they run out of gas. But guess what? That service station is also out of gas because everyone in that area had the same idea and they went 200 miles the other direction. Billions of people all doing the same thing. Some more effectively than others, some earlier than others, right? Get out while the getting's good, beat the crowd, as they like to say. But everybody doing the same thing at the same time for the same reason. Because we just suddenly woke up to the fact that the oceans are trying and successfully managing to kill us. And that's why you're not interested in saving the planet. You should be interested in saving yourself. Now, that's scary. I know. Saving the planet is like, yeah, that's nice. David Attenborough did a documentary on that in the 80s, didn't he? Yeah, saving the planet. We've been talking about that for 60 years, right? Jacques Cousteau, David Attenborough, right? Carl Sagan, you know, the blue dot. We've been all about trying to save the planet. 50, 60 years. Have we managed it? I don't know. We still got a planet. We still got rocks and trees and oceans and water, and the planet's still here. Okay, so maybe the planet isn't the problem. Maybe saving the planet was never the problem. Maybe the problem was always saving organized civilization and all forms of life. Maybe that was the problem. They didn't say that. Please note, they didn't say that. Why would they? That shit's scary. Okay. You're going to save all life? That's the real challenge, including human life? Really? That's the challenge? That's what we have to do? We have to save human life because we've hit the iceberg and this Titanic is sinking and there's not enough lifeboats? We have to save human life now without not enough lifeboats and no real plan on how we're going to do this? And that's our challenge? Are you even kidding me? Why would you say that? Because it's true? Well, then if you're going to say it's true, then you have to solve the problem. Oh, you can't? Because it's a wicked problem? Well, then why did you say it? Because it's the truth. Well, now we're stuck in a loop. I don't want you to say it, but you have to say it because you're a scientist, because you're a policymaker, and you have to tell the people the truth, that they're going to die. And they're either going to die because, of global heating, or they're going to die because of cutting off the fossil fuels, which also causes death because people are dependent on fossil fuels to survive. And they don't know that, but that's what they'll find out. And once they find that out, they're going to lose their shit. When people find out that they are dependent on fossil fuels to survive, and fossil fuels are threatening all human life, once they put those two dots together and draw the line, they are going to lose their fucking shit. They're going to lose their shit. And they're going to look for someone to hang from a lamp pole because no one told them that this was the truth. So nobody will. I'm telling you the truth. People are going to say, yes, it's so hot, and there's so much flooding, and there's so much hail, and there's so much disaster, and the insurance companies are bailing out of entire communities, the states, and we don't know what to do, and the states have to fix the problem of the insurance, and the states have to institute UBI, and all this and that and the other thing, and the subtext is you're going to die. Now they won't say that. They'll talk about the insurance, and they'll talk about the inflation, and they'll talk about the UBI, and they'll talk about the climate change. And they'll talk about all the things. They'll talk around it. They'll walk around the gorilla in the middle of the room. They'll walk around it. But the gorilla in the middle of the room is X risk, existential risk, the risk of extinction. It's happened before on this planet. It's called the Great Dying. Now, humans weren't around then, so you can't blame humans. But this one, this is on us. We did this. We are still doing this. We continue to do this. There is no talk from anywhere, not even from climate scientists, about stop doing this. We are going to continue to burn fossil fuels. We will burn the fossil fuels probably until there's enough dead people that no one needs fossil fuels anymore. And then they'll probably stay in the ground because there's no market. If you pull the fossil fuels out of the ground and you put them in the tanks and you put them on the tank cars and you take them to the service stations and you load up the underground tanks at the service station, but no one comes to buy the product, then your whole pipeline fills up with product. And then pretty soon there's nowhere for new product because no one's buying the product. Why are they not buying the product? Because they dead. They died. From what? From everything. There's 100 different ways that global heating can kill you. 100 different ways. Take me all day to list them. There's 100 different ways. Climate change isn't even in there. Climate change is just what you would call the 100 different ways. The 100 different ways are ways. There are things that can kill you. A hailstone the size of a DVD can bash your brains out. Okay. One, convective convective storms with so much lightning and so powerful lightning, it just sets every building on fire in your town. Two, I could go on. Tornado outbreaks, where the tornadoes are so huge from all the excess heat. And there are so many of them, and they just come in lines after line of them. It's called training. They're like trains on a track, just one after the other, tearing up communities, scattering the people, killing them, throwing them into trees, impaling them on fences, just killing everything. Everything dies in these tornadoes, in these tornado outbreaks. Three, you get the point? I could go on. I could sit here all day. I can sit here all day and list 100 different things that global heating is going to do to murder you. To murder you. You're not saving the planet. That's what they're going to talk about because that's safe. That's safe language. This is narrative warfare. They don't want to say the thing. We're not here to save the planet. We're here to save ourselves. I recommend approaching your survival from here on out, from this day forward, as a necessity to create some kind of community for mutual preservation, and the synonym for that is village life. We need to reproduce village life because that's enough people working together to get the things done. Enough separate points of talent and intelligence and creativity that with a bunch of people, 100 people probably is the minimum, maybe up to 300 people, village life, and just build your fences, build your walls, focus on what you need to do, and cross your fingers that nothing unlucky happens to you. And there'll be a lot of missteps and a lot of bad luck. But the people who survive this, when they tell their grandchildren collected at their feet how they did it, they'll say, well, we had 200-300 really good neighbors, really good people, were very smart, and we did all the right things. We had the land, the seed, the plows, the domesticated animals. We had water. We had, medications. We had experts in health and teaching and technology and engineering and hydrology. And we had all these people. Some of them we picked deliberately and had them come to our village. Some of them just turned out they had the talent we needed. And you get enough people together, you end up with enough talent. And if you don't have a talent, there'll probably be somebody or some group of people, some small group who will raise their hand and say, okay, we'll learn about that. And they go off and they come back and all of a sudden they're beekeepers. They go off and they come back and all of a sudden they're cheesemakers, and they go off and they come back and all of a sudden they know they're carpenters. They know how to saw planks of lumber out of trees. If you have enough people, you can figure it out, right? And a bunch of people working collectively towards the shared goal of survival and mutual support. So everybody's propping up everybody else. That's called village life. These are modern villages. They'll have as much technology as they can round up before before everything goes to shit. What do they need? They need everything. There's 1,000 things they need. There's 100 things that are going to try to kill you, and there's 1,000 things you need to make that not happen. Wow. That's why I say, get to work. You got to get to work. There's 100 things driven by global heating and physics. There are 100 things driven by physics and chemistry, right? And biology and everything else. There's 100 things that are going to try to kill you. All of it fueled by global heating. Global heating is the cause. And the cause of global heating is what? Do I have to say this? Enhancements to the greenhouse effect of the Earth, which is perfectly natural, but we're enhancing it by emitting CO2 into the atmosphere. CO2 is a greenhouse gas. And how are we emitting CO2? By burning fossil fuels. Ta-da! You're doomed. None of that's going to stop. None of that can stop. You don't even want that to stop. You want that all to continue. Okay, fine. It can all continue. And as a result, you're fucked. Now, how do we unfuck ourselves? Since all that's going to happen. Village life. Village life. Find your people. Collect your technology. Get it all lined up. If you want electricity, get solar panels. Figure it out. If you need a well, hire some company to drill a well and you'll have a well. And you got electricity, you can have a pump, you can pump the water. Is it a pump that you can fix? Because I've seen pumps go bad all the time. But is it a pump you can fix? Right? Or is it a disposable pump? What if it's a fixable pump? I've worked with lots of pumps you could fix. I've worked with pumps that were, 100 years old because they were fixable, they were repairable, they weren't disposable. Cheap shit from China. They were repairable pumps, and I've had to repair them. Country boy, you repair the pump. When the seals go bad, you repack the seals. Look it up. It's on the internet somewhere. Repacking pump seals. Look it up. It's a thing. You didn't even know that. I knew that because I'm a country boy. Village life. I know what it is. And I know what kind of pump you need. And I know what that looks like. And when someone tries to sell me a pump for pumping water out of a well, I'll ask some questions. Are the seals replaceable? If they're not, if they're rubber seals that are disposable, then I don't buy it. And if it has replaceable seals, then I buy it. And I buy a roll of the seal material. Comes in a roll. It's like $10. A big roll of this stuff, and then you, as you need it, you cut it, you repack the seals, maybe every few years. So, but I know that, and you didn't. You see, so you'd want me in your village, because when it comes time to drill a well, I know what that takes, and when it comes time to put a pump on that well, I know what that takes, and when it comes time to set up a pressure system, so you have pressurized water for all your taps, I know what that takes. I know all this stuff because that's how I lived. I lived that way for my entire childhood. And then we moved into the city and we had, city water with the taps. You turn the tap on and the water comes out. But they're not fooling me. They're fooling you. They're not fooling me. I know where that water comes from. And somewhere there's a pump. Are you scared yet? You should be. You should be terrified. And when they say, we've got to save the planet, what I want you to do is to lean forward and say to that asshole on the screen, no, chump, that is not what we have to do. We have to save ourselves. We have to do that immediately. Of course, he's not going to hear you, but you'll hear yourself, you see? And that's you educating yourself on what we have to do and not simply accepting his word on it. Because he had to say that. According to the lawyers and his peers and his boss, he had to say it that way. That we're going to save the planet from climate change. Whatever. He couldn't say what he needed to say, probably wanted to say. And in the first draft of his speech or his paper or his presentation or his podcast, he was, we have to save. We have to save human life from global heating. And then someone scratched that out. Whatever happened? It was either there or it never was. When they say, now our challenge is to save the planet. No, you lean in and you say, no, that's wrong. I know what you think you're saying, and I know why you said it. But what you just said is not what we have to do. The planet doesn't give a fuck. We might as well try to save Venus or Mars. What you should have said is that we need to apply all of our intelligence, all of our effort, all of the resources we currently have, and all of our best minds to saving humanity and as much of the rest of the life on this planet as we can identify. Oh, and by the way, it'd be nice if the oceans didn't die. That'd be nice. I'm not sure that's possible, but that'd be nice. That's what you should repeat back to the guy when he says at the end of his podcast, when he has 3 seconds left for his sunset picture, you say, no, he says, we have to save the planet from climate change. And then you come back. That is not correct. I know why you said it. That is not the challenge. Saving the planet is not the challenge. Saving the life of this planet, saving ourselves, is absolutely every single time job one. I'm counting on you to get this straight. I'm counting on you. We're going to have to start forming villages. We're going to have to, not because we need to save the planet, but because we need to save ourselves. That's the reason. And that's the reason why they don't want you to know that. They don't want you doing that. They don't want you checking out. They want you going to your daily job, getting your coin, buying your iPhone. That's what they want you doing. They don't want you saving yourself. They want to sell you something. You need to know that you have to save yourself. Village life. Think about it. Read up on the Middle Ages. And don't worry about the thatched roofs. We can do better than that now. We have all kinds of ways to roof a building. Okay. Don't worry about living in chicken shit. We can manage our chickens differently. We understand now what we're doing. And we still have maybe possibly ways to make penicillin. They didn't have penicillin. They didn't have a germ theory of disease. We do. So you're way, way ahead of medieval peasants. You're way, way ahead of all those, even the kings and emperors. They didn't know anything, and you know so much, or could, if you tried. And if you can't, and you just don't think you can wrap your head around it, then wrap yourself around a village. Wrap a village around yourself. Put yourself in a wrapper of people and make that happen. And maybe you're an organizer, and maybe you can actually organize a village, and no one else in the village can do that. Maybe that's your contribution. Start a village. How does that happen? I don't know. Think about it. You're the organizer. You tell me how that shit happens. Because I'm a scientist and I'm an engineer. Don't ask me how to make a village. I'm interested in the engineering. We need people who are interested in the people. So we have to work together. And you need me on your team. Will I be? You got to find me. You got to make a village and then invite me in. Or I'm going to be off somewhere doing my thing for me. And that doesn't really work. Or I'll find a village I want to associate myself with, and I'll do the magic, wizardry people packing the seals in a pump. It's wizardry for somebody else. And the village that gets people like me, their options for survival are a lot better. As long as the planet doesn't try to kill us in a big way.